This content is not suitable for children and may contain depictions of violence.
Hi, I'm your host Cambo. Grab a beer, pull up a deck chair. This is True Crime Island, another true crime podcast, and aren't there a lot of them? So, Islanders, over the last few weeks, we've delved into quite a few cases where the victims were family members of the perpetrators. Now, this week is much the same in that a cheating, lying husband kills his cancer-stricken wife to be with his new girlfriend. So, this week's case is set in sunny Queensland, Australia. Now, I will reference court documents. Most of this is court documents. The Daily Mail, which is such a trashy sort of website, but it's good for this sort of thing. abc.net.au, tweeddailynews.com.au, AAP, and Channel 7 News. Okay, so it's 2005 in Bonogan, I don't know. Send me an email. You usually do when I get it wrong. And that's in Queensland. And it's about half an hour's drive southwest of the Gold Coast. It's here that 49-year-old Edward Kenneth Lord lived with his wife, 57-year-old Michelle Lord, on White Ash Road. Ed and Michelle had been married for 25 years and they had no children. Now, Ed had worked as a concreter and Michelle as an after-sales rep at Q Ford, and that's a Ford dealership in Springwood. Ed and Michelle's relationship had deteriorated over the years, with Michelle confiding in her sisters and closest friends about the problems, but she was determined to make the marriage work. Now, probably some of the deterioration of the marriage came about because Ed would meet Malaysian national Su Ping, or Margaret Fong, who'd entered Australia on a student visa and was working at the Thai Orchid Massage at Broadbeach, Gold Coast. Now, I don't think this was a happy ending massage at the time. I can't be 100% sure, but they did do normal, legitimate massage, facials and the like. Now, Margaret enrolled to study English at a language school on the Gold Coast, and shortly after that, she met Ed at a nearby coffee shop. Now, I reckon Ed met her at the massage parlour, but regardless, Ed started to go see her and get massages from her. Now, he became a regular customer from November 2014. Now, get this. Ed would take his wife to the massage parlour to have a facial and to meet Margaret Fong. Now, later on, I'll have my thoughts on this. I'll give you my opinion, but let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. So, Ed and Margaret started to get it on together, and in a bold move, and I would say this is a bold move, Ed suggested to Michelle that they hire Margaret as a live-in housemaid. He convinced Michelle that it would be a good idea because she worked long hours and she was ill with breast cancer. Margaret was given the use of a bedroom downstairs in Ed and Michelle's two-storey home, while the marital bedroom was located upstairs. Fuck's sake, he not only is having an affair with this woman, he takes his wife to go get a facial from her at work, then gets her in the house as a maid. I mean, what the fuck? I think the facial thing was to get Michelle to meet Margaret with the plan from the start to get her into the house as his little bit on the side maid. Anyway, on May the 14th, 2015, Michelle travelled to China with her mum for a holiday, returning on the 27th of May 2015. While she was out of the country, Ed and Margaret Fong went to Noosa for some naughty time at a resort for 2 nights. In July 2015, Ed spoke to Margaret's immigration agent. Now, during that conversation, Ed asked whether Margaret was eligible for a partner visa if he was her sponsor. Now, Ed was told that he could be a sponsor for a partner visa if he was no longer in a relationship with his wife. Bit of a problem there, isn't it? Margaret recorded in her personal diary that Ed proposed marriage to her on the 28th of August 2015 and she accepted it. Ed also told Margaret's friend and former manager at the Thai Orchid Massage that he wanted to divorce his wife because he couldn't live with her and wanted to take Margaret back to Malaysia to marry her. Now, Michelle became increasingly suspicious of her husband's behaviour and the relationship he was having with the maid. She spoke to friends, work colleagues and family members about her suspicions. Now, Michelle booked a holiday to Vanuatu for 7 days. That was from 19th of September to 26th of September 2015 in an effort to restore the relationship with her husband. Now, whilst they were away in Vanuatu, Margaret returned to Malaysia and Taiwan for 4 weeks. Prior to her departure on the 15th of September 2015, Margaret obtained a second SIM card which she gave to Ed so that they could keep in contact while he was out of Australia. Now, Ed and Margaret messaged and called each other the whole time they were apart. So happy Vanuatu holiday. Now, before leaving for Vanuatu, Michelle told her family and friends that she'd busted Ed with a second mobile phone. Now, she asked him about it and was told that he always had a second mobile phone. What are you talking about, Michelle? I've always had one. That's a load of bullshit. Michelle checked out this phone and found that all call log and other information had been deleted. When Michelle returned from holiday, Vanuatu, she told her friends and family that the holiday didn't go so well and that Ed spent all his time on the phone. Then in September 2015, Michelle was told that she would no longer be paid by Ford for aftermarket work, which would reduce her annual income by around $45,000. So, not only was she stressed for her health and marital problems, she now had been dealt a blow financially. Luckily, she was able to get a new position with Victory Ford at Tweed Heads on the 20th of October 2015. Now, Margaret Fong, she returned to Australia on the 4th of October, and Michelle asked her cleaners, because Michelle was getting cleaners in once a week, to talk to Margaret about the Vanuatu trip to see if she would react, and I think to let Margaret know that Michelle, she knew what was going on, and maybe that might scare her off a bit, make Margaret back off a bit. On the 7th of October 2015, Michelle employed a PI to conduct surveillance on Margaret and her husband. The investigator reported that on the 11th of October, Ed and Margaret had breakfast together at a coffee shop and then travelled together to visit his mum. I mean, what the fuck? This guy is really bold. Okay, and now he's not only getting bold, he's getting fucking dangerous. That afternoon that Michelle got the report from her PI, she went to Broadbeach Police Station in Queensland with the PI to report that her husband had attempted to drug her the previous night and that she suspected him of putting a sleeping tablet in her wine in order to allow him to go and fuck Margaret. She produced a wine glass with a white residue in it and a glass jar containing liquid. Now, Queensland Police, they took a report that included a history of her recent marriage difficulties, but guess what? They did nothing further in terms of the investigation with the wine glass and the jar. They just chucked it out. I mean, what the actual fuck? On the 12th of October 2015, Michelle told her family and friends that she'd spoken to Ed about spending time with Margaret the day before. She said that he told her the reason he took Margaret to his mum's was because she had a gift to give her from Malaysia. Now, Michelle also said Ed had agreed to see a marriage counsellor and would arrange for Margaret to move out of the house by the end of the week. Now, Margaret said she was now not certain that they were having an affair and that she would give their marriage another go because Ed had said he would change. How many times we hear that? Oh, I'm going to change, darling. Don't leave. I'm going to change. Yeah. But what a load of bullshit. And this would be a fatal mistake. But Ed's verbal commitment to Michelle would turn out to be just bullshit when the next day he tells her that he doesn't have time to go and see a marriage counsellor. Yeah, right. That same day, Michelle goes to see her solicitor, thank God, wanting to initiate divorce proceedings and discuss a property settlement. She told the solicitor that she and her husband were having an okay conversation yesterday, but all of a sudden he says he doesn't have any time to see the marriage counsellor. A couple of days later, Michelle told her close friend Frances Wilson that she'd given Ed an ultimatum that they seek marriage counselling together or she was going to leave him. On the 16th of October, Michelle told her friend, Catherine Cox, that she'd planned to spend Sunday with Ed and that they were going to take a drive down to Byron Bay. She thought that just might resolve some issues if they spent some time together. Michelle had also told her friends and family about Ed's tendency to become angry and occasionally react spontaneously and aggressively by punching walls and yelling at her. This included punching a hole in the wall of their bedroom when they were arguing about Margaret. There was no mention of physical violence towards Michelle, just Ed going mental and smashing shit up. At about 8 a.m. on the 20th of October, Ed and Michelle left their home together in Michelle's 2003 Nissan 350Z Coupe. Ed was driving and they travelled to Mudgeeraba for breakfast before driving to Ballina. From there, they drove to Byron Bay, where they went shopping and had lunch. Later that evening, they travelled north on the Pacific Highway to Chindera and detoured south on the Tweed Valley Way to find something to eat. At around 8:36 p.m, Ed and Michelle went to the Tumbulgum Hotel. They wanted food, but the kitchen was closed. Ed left the hotel pissed off, and followed closely by Michelle. They travelled further south on the Tweed Valley Way to Murwillumbah and to another restaurant, and that was closed, which is a thing that happens out in the country. 5 o'clock, all the pubs are open, nothing else is closed, and the pubs might not have food all night. They ultimately found the Riverside Pizza restaurant on Commercial Road, Murwillumbah, where they ate. Now, pizza parlours always open at any time for the local stoners to get late night munchies. Anyway, they left the pizza joint at about 9:30 p.m. Staff at the restaurant didn't see anything untoward in their behaviour. They drove back through Tumbulgum on the Tweed Valley Way, heading in an easterly direction. Around this time, a commercial fisherman on the Tweed River at Tumbulgum witnessed a loud, aggressive argument between a male and female, which we now know to be Ed and Michelle. They were in a car park just off Tweed Valley Way at the intersection of Tweed Valley Way and Riverside Drive, if you want to have a look on Google Maps. That car park is in a secluded area adjacent to the Tweed River, away from any houses. It was in darkness, and the fisherman heard a deep male voice, and that was Ed, speaking in an aggressive manner, which became more aggressive as he continued to raise his voice. He heard Ed say words to the effect of, "I've had a fucking enough of your shit," and Michelle say, "Just take me home." Not long after witnessing the argument, packing up his gear and driving home, the fisherman saw emergency vehicles pass him on the road. They would be travelling to the area up Tweed Valley Way, about 500 metres east of the car park and that Riverside Drive, where a car was upside down and submerged in the water after running off the road, which runs along the banks of the Tweed River. Now, Ed Lord, he was out of the car, soaked. He'd been able to drag his wife, Michelle, from the car, but she was unconscious. Ed told police he escaped the sinking car through the open driver's side window, and then he went back underwater and managed to pull his wife out through the open driver's side window as the passenger side window was up. Michelle was unconscious. He brought her to the river's edge where he tried to resuscitate her. He was unable to carry her up the rock embankment. He then ran approximately 200 metres to the nearest house and sought assistance from the residents, who contacted emergency services. Now, an off-duty nurse stopped as the first police arrived and assisted him to carry Michelle up over the rock embankment. They then conducted CPR until the arrival of ambulance and paramedics, who took over treatment. Now, Michelle was subsequently flown to Gold Coast University Hospital in a critical condition, where she was placed on life support. She died, sadly, 2 days later. I can't pronounce the medical term, but basically she drowned and got some really bad shit in her system from the water. While paramedics were treating Michelle at the scene, police spoke to Ed, who said, "We were driving along having a laugh. The front left wheel slipped on the verge. I thought it had just spin out of control in a paddock. He said he'd been travelling at around 100 kilometres per hour and that no other vehicles were involved. Now, Ed was taken to Tweed Heads Hospital, where he was interviewed as the driver of a vehicle involved in a collision causing death or injury. The interview was recorded. He said, "We were just chatting in the car. I'm just looking at it for a split second. The next thing you know, obviously I must have turned the wheel a little bit and I've hit the grass on the side of the highway. Next thing you know, I speared the car in the Tumbulgum River. And that's when all hell broke loose and the car submerged." Now, Ed had already been breath tested before being taken to the hospital, and that came up with a negative result. Now, when he got to the hospital, there's mandatory blood and urine samples. They were taken, and that was actually also negative. Whilst at the hospital, Ed was further interviewed by police in which he said that nothing untoward had occurred. He said, "No, nothing. No, I was just joking, carrying on. We're having a bit of a joke when the incident happened. So, yeah, that's about all I can tell you." So, whenever there's a car accident, and especially if a death has occurred, crash investigators will go and check it all out to see if they can find out exactly what's happened. They're not just going to go on what Ed said. That just isn't good enough. On the 26th of October 2015, Ed attended Tweed Heads Police Station, where he participated in an electronically recorded interview with crash investigators. Now, during that interview, he claimed that his marriage was harmonious and that they were in a happy relationship, which we know is bullshit, and it won't take Sherlock Holmes to find that out either. He expanded on his earlier versions provided to police. He described travelling at night when he took his eyes off the road for a split second and sort of leant over to look at his wife, who, he said, was showing him some photos on her mobile phone. In doing so, Ed said he must have pulled the steering wheel a little bit, causing the vehicle to go sideways onto the grass shoulder before it went down the rocky embankment. He said he hit the brakes. He described how he managed to climb out of the open driver's side window. Upon realising that his wife didn't follow him to the surface, he dived down to the submerged vehicle. He said that he was up to his waist inside the driver's side window, feeling for his wife, before grabbing her and dragging her out to the surface. He managed to drag his wife to the base of the rock wall, where he noticed she was unconscious and not breathing. After performing CPR for 5 minutes, he said she was still unresponsive, so he climbed to the top of the embankment to wave down passing motorists for help. No one stopped, so then he ran to a farmhouse where he called 000. Now, 5 days before this interview, the crash investigators had been on the scene, so they sort of know what's going on already. On the 21st of October, the Police Crash Investigation Unit and Police Dive Unit had examined the crime scene on the Tweed Valley Way. The vehicle was still submerged in the river and was retrieved after being located by police divers. Now, police found the vehicle with the driver's side window down and the passenger side window up. It was facing nose into the bank and was lying on the roof, so that much that Ed had told him is pretty much spot on. But an examination of the roadway showed no evidence that the vehicle had lost control or conducted any braking on the road, the sealed shoulder or the grass shoulder. There were no tyre marks located at the scene that could be attributed to the vehicle braking or losing control. The grass shoulder had tyre marks. It had flattened grass consistent with the tyres rotating rather than side slipping or braking, which showed the path of the vehicle commencing 1 metre east of the end of the left-hand bend and continuing in a consistent diagonal direction towards the top of the rocky embankment. A number of the rocks forming the embankment wall had marks of them on them identified by the experts as caused by the underside of the vehicle coming into contact with these rocks. The marks were in alignment with the tyre marks on the grass, showing a continuous, uninterrupted path. In short, basically, he was in full control of the vehicle and he's just driven straight over the edge on purpose. There was no, oops, oh, I've lost control, oh, sideways, slip, put the brakes on, oh, shit, I'm in the water. No, he has just gone, fuck you, boom, driven straight off the edge. There's just straight lines for the wheels, straight over the edge, and that's what he's done. There's no out of control. And these coppers know it when they brought him in for that interview. Also, the road surface was all in good condition. There were no visible potholes, no damage or irregularities that would constitute the likely contributing factor in the collision. So there's no potholes that he's had to avoid or anything like that. He just drove straight over the edge. The vehicle was submerged in approximately 4.4 metres of water. Now, get this, Michelle's handbag containing her mobile phone was located between the seats and nothing had spilt from the bag. So when Ed told police Michelle was showing him photos on her phone when the car left the road, that was just a load of bullshit. The phone was still in a bloody purse. Now, the vehicle underwent a total mechanical examination that confirmed there was no mechanical defect that could have been a contributing factor to the incident. Now, investigations by police included the installation of listening devices in Ed's home and his home of his mum as well as the interception of his mobile phone and physical surveillance of both he and Margaret Fong. It revealed that the relationship between Ed and Margaret continued until at least June 2016. That was 8 months after the accident. Ed would be arrested on the 20th of February 2017. He participated in an electronically recorded interview in which he claimed to have been in a loving relationship with his wife. He said that Margaret Fong, she's just the housekeeper. He confirmed that everything he told investigators was the truth, and he otherwise refused to answer any further questions. He was then charged. So, he was denying that he was boning Margaret, the maid, but the cops had phone taps on him, so they knew he was lying. Now, after Michelle's death, Ed flew into a rage when he thought Margaret Fong was giving a customer happy endings after a massage. He telephoned her in a loud, aggressive manner, telling her that they were finished, and then he hung up. How do you do that with a mobile phone? Anyway, he then rang his mum and told her what had happened. He said that he'd kicked the car, slammed the door, he'd punched the car windows so hard that his hand had become swollen. He nearly wrapped his car around a tree and had gone down, driving down the wrong side of the highway. So you can see how dangerous this prick is. Not only driving his car into the river and his wife dies, but he goes into rages and drives like a lunatic, compromising the safety of the general public in his car. Not caring if he dies or if anyone else dies. What a fucking prick this guy is. Ed would plead not guilty to the murder charge right up to the last possible moment. He then changed his plea from guilty of murder to manslaughter, which was accepted by the Crown. This meant there'd be no trial, but there would be a sentencing hearing. Now, Ed didn't give evidence at the hearing, but relied instead upon statements he gave to Mr. Macklin, a clinical psychologist whose psychological report was dated 24th of October 2019, so it wasn't long ago. It was read in part. Now, I'll read this out. On the circumstances that brought him to prison, he said tearfully, apparently he was crying when he said this, I can say how sorry I am for what's happened, losing Michelle in this horrific way. Also, to all her nieces and nephews, to my mum, she was one in a million, can never be replaced. She was my lover, soulmate and best friend. She'll be in my heart forever. Bullshit. But the judge, his opinion was Ed failed to demonstrate any remorse. He reckoned that the words offered to a sympathetic clinician, that's this Macklin guy, was far removed from public scrutiny, and they are somewhat a feeble substitute for actually getting up and giving evidence in the dock. The judge said, genuine remorse is difficult to suppress and easy to express. So, he should have just got up in the dock at his sentencing hearing and said he was really sad and sorry for what he did, he had remorse. Just do it in the witness box to all the family and friends. He didn't. He did it via some written statement to the psychologist. Now, Ed would be sentenced to 10 years and 8 months, commencing on the 27th of February 2017 and expiring on the 26th of October 2027 with a non-parole period of 8 years, expiring on the 26th of February 2025. The offence was recorded on his criminal record as a domestic violence offence. So, Islanders, what a lying, cheating prick of a guy. This Edward Kenneth Lord isn't a danger to society because he plans out or premeditates his actions. He's a danger because he goes into fits of rage when something doesn't go his way. Driving off the road into the river could just have easily killed him as it did his wife, and he even admitted to driving on the wrong side of the road when he thought Margaret Fong was giving happy endings at the massage parlour she was working at, even after he'd killed his wife. So he already knew what would happen if you do this stupid shit in a car. Non-parole of 8 years for killing her? That's really fucked up, because he's just going to get out of jail with a huge chip on his shoulder, and maybe some random person will be just in the wrong place at the wrong time and take the brunt of his next rage attack. Manslaughter can get you 25 years. His full sentence is only 10 years and 8 months. And with time served already, he could be back on the streets in less than 5 years. I mean, how's that for justice? Michelle and her family seem to be the only ones paying for Ed's infidelity and stupidity, and they will be paying for it for life. God, she was sick with cancer. He should have been taking care of her, but no, he gets his little bit on the side into the house under the guise of her being there to help Michelle out as housemaid. But Ed is slipping sleeping pills into Michelle's drink so he can go root the maid at night. I mean, fuck's sake, what an arsehole. And Margaret Fong isn't much better being part of it. She would have known Ed was drugging Michelle and that Michelle wasn't aware of the affair. She's disappeared. I couldn't even find a photo of her to put here on the video. Ed did appeal his sentence, but it was dismissed. So even he thinks he's a little bit hard done by. Well, Islanders, what do you think? Should he have got a harsher sentence? And also, have I been a little bit harsh on Margaret Fong at the end of the show? Anyway, that's the end of another episode. Comment below. I'd just like to say, if you want to support the island, there are links in the description for Patreon, PayPal and merch. Please feel free to comment, like and subscribe, and I would truly appreciate if you share the channel. Hit the bell to be notified, because I don't bleep out the swearing and use words like murder and all that. Fuck. The YouTube gods aren't going to promote this channel, so your subscription and sharing are really appreciated in getting more people on the island. Again, subscribe and comment on the 1,000 subscriber giveaway. That's a little video. You see a couple of spots up for a chance to pick up a t-shirt. The winner will be chosen on, I think, the 4th of September. It'll be Friday anyway. I'll take a video of it and stick it up. Well, that's it. Got a bit of the Cambo rage. I've been your host, Cambo. You've been watching True Crime Island. And as I always say, don't forget to delete your browser history. Good night. Boom fuckalunga.